All right, today we're going to do something a little different. We are going to break down one of the most fascinating political processes in India, but we're going to treat it like a step-by-step guide. Think of it as a how-to manual for landing the highest office in the country. So let's just start with a really direct question. Have you ever thought about becoming the president of India? For all you UPSC aspirants out there, think of this explainer as the ultimate job application breakdown. Let's dig into what it really takes. So here's our game plan for today. First, we'll look at the job description itself. Then, we'll see if you're qualified. After that, we'll walk through how to file your nomination, and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of the electoral college and how the votes are counted. And finally, we'll cover what happens when you actually win. So let's get right into it. Okay, first things first. Before you apply for any job, you really have to understand the role, right? So what does the President of India actually do? The most important thing to get your head around is this difference between the nominal and the real executive. The president is the head of state. They're the symbolic figurehead for the whole nation, someone who's meant to be above all the party politics. But the real day-to-day executive power, that lies with the prime minister and their council of ministers. They're the head of government, so the president acts on their advice, kind of like the conscience keeper of the nation. Now, this is where it gets really interesting, how this relationship has been shaped over time. Back in 1976, the 42nd Amendment made it totally mandatory for the president to accept the cabinet's advice. But then, just 2 years later, the 44th Amendment added this really crucial check. It gave the president the power to send advice back for reconsideration, but only once. Now, this might seem small, but it's a super significant power. It lets the president pump the brakes and basically say, hey, are you sure about this? All right. So you get the seriousness of the job. The next logical question is, well, are you even qualified to apply? Let's take a look at the constitutional requirements. So, the qualifications themselves are pretty straightforward. First, you have to be a citizen of India. You need to be at least 35 years old. You also need to be qualified to be elected as a member of the Lok Sabha. And, this one's important, you can't hold what's called an office of profit under the government. But, and this is a really big but, there's a major exception to that rule. For the purpose of this election, top officials like the sitting president, the vice president, or even state governors are not considered to be holding an office of profit. This is what allows them to run for president while they're still in their current roles. Okay, so let's say you meet all the qualifications. Fantastic. So what's next? Well, now it's time to actually file your official nomination papers. Now, you can't just walk in and nominate yourself. Your nomination paper has to be signed by at least 50 voters from the electoral college. These are your proposers. And wait, there's more. On top of that, you need another 50 voters from that same electoral college to sign on as seconders. The reason they have this 100 elector requirement is to make sure that only serious candidates, people who already have a pretty broad base of political support, can actually enter the race. And finally, there's a security deposit. Every single candidate has to put down 15,000 rupees with the Reserve Bank of India. And just a little heads up here, if you don't manage to get at least 1/6 of the total votes, you'll lose that deposit. So, we've mentioned this electoral college a few times now. But who exactly are these people? Who are these voters that hold the key to Rashtrapati Bhavan? Remember, this isn't an election where every citizen votes directly, so let's break down who actually gets a say. This table makes it super clear. The voters are all the elected members of parliament, that's both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, and the elected members of legislative assemblies from every state, plus Delhi and Pondicherry. Now, who's out? Well, any nominated members are out. The thinking here is that the president should be elected by representatives of the people, and nominated members are appointed, not elected. Also, members of the state legislative councils, or MLCs, are excluded too. All right, now we get to what is probably the most complex, but also the most fascinating part of this whole guide, the counting process. This is not a simple one person, one vote deal. It's a system of proportional representation, a really clever constitutional setup designed to perfectly reflect India's federal structure. Okay, don't let the formula intimidate you. The value of an MLA's vote is basically decided by their state's population. And note, that's based on the 1971 census. You take that population, divide it by the number of elected MLAs in that state, and then divide that whole thing by 1,000. What this means is pretty simple. An MLA from a state with more people has a vote that carries more weight. And this chart just brings that point home so clearly. Just look at the difference. An MLA from Uttar Pradesh has a vote value of 208. Meanwhile, an MLA from the much less populated Arunachal Pradesh has a vote value of just 8. This whole system is designed to make sure states are represented in proportion to how many people live there. So what about the MPs? How is their vote value calculated? Well, this is all about creating a balance of power. You take the total value of all the MLA votes from across the entire country, and you divide that by the total number of elected MPs. This creates something called the principle of parity, which basically means the total voting power of all the states combined is roughly equal to the total voting power of Parliament. It ensures the president represents both the states and the union. So how does the voting itself actually work? It's a system called the single transferable vote. Voters don't just pick one person. Instead, they rank the candidates. First choice, second choice, third choice, and so on. If nobody gets enough votes to win in the first round, the candidate in last place gets eliminated, and their votes, they get transferred to whoever their voters picked as their second choice. This whole thing repeats until someone finally wins. Let's see it in action. Okay, imagine a super simple election. There are 8 total votes in play. To win, a candidate needs to get a quota of 5 votes. So after we count everyone's first choice, we see candidate B is in the lead with 3 votes, but nobody has reached that magic number of 5. So we're not done yet. So on to round 2. We find the candidate with the fewest votes, that's candidate D, and eliminate them. Now, let's say the person who voted for D put candidate A as their second choice. So D's 1 vote gets transferred over to A. And look at that. Now we have a tie for first place between A and B, but still nobody has hit that winning quota of 5. So we have to go another round. The new person in last place is candidate C, so they get eliminated. Let's say both of the voters who chose C put candidate B as their next preference. So C's 2 votes transfer to B, and there it is. B's total hits 5, which is the quota. Candidate B is our winner. So you've done it. You've navigated the whole election, you've won the vote. Congratulations. But the journey isn't quite over yet. Let's look at the last few steps to officially taking office. Before taking office, the president-elect has to take an oath, and it's administered by the Chief Justice of India. And this isn't just some ceremony. It is a deeply solemn promise to become the ultimate guardian of the Constitution. It's a duty that has to go beyond any political party and is all about serving the people of India. And with that oath, our how-to guide is complete. But you know what leaves us with one last really big question to think about. For a role that is, for the most part, ceremonial, why on earth is the election system this complex? The answer might just tell us more about the value India places on this office as a symbol of the republic, a defender of the federal spirit, than any textbook ever could. Something to chew on. Thanks for watching.